all and to share in the satsang today. Thank you for those beautiful readings. Today the topic is overcoming spiritual tests, and I think everyone goes through them at various times. And the Bhagavad Gita itself speaks of Krishna counsels Arjuna about the battle of life. That's what the Bhagavad Gita is about, isn't it? About the tests that one goes through, the practices that take you through the tests, the guru who takes you by the hand and leads you through the fires of your life, the practices that you can do, the seva that you might do, the music of the spheres of Om that you might listen to. And he counsels him. Even Arjuna says, I can't fight. He lays down his bow. And Yoganandaji said that meant that he stopped his practices. He said, it's too much for me. And his guru counsels him, you must fight for your soul's freedom, your soul's liberation. And as we practice our techniques, as we walk this path, we get stronger and stronger. And our gurus are, like Krishna, guiding us along the way to continue. And we become more attached to the soul rather than the personality and the ego. We become more like the soul. We begin to feel so much peace inside. We begin to feel so much joy inside that the outer tests, they don't touch us nearly as much as they would if we weren't on the path. There's a story of Guruji, Yoganandaji. He one time had a wishing well at Mount Washington, I think it was, that had fallen on his foot. And he just grimaced with pain. And all the disciples were very worried. And then he said, now I'm going to show you that if I bring my energy up to the point between the eyebrows, if I uplift myself, if I focus here instead of on the pain, you will see I won't have the pain. And he did that. And he was completely natural, completely fine. There was no pain. He was teaching the disciples, as you lift your energy up through the practices, come to the Kutastha Chaitanya center, then the pain won't affect you at all or won't affect you nearly as much. Also, I was reading recently a story of Ramakrishna, who he was getting ready to leave his body, and he was there. He had a throat cancer, I believe it was, and so one of his disciples came. He said, well, Master, how are you? And Ramakrishna said, oh, I'm feeling really bad. And he said, well, is there pain? He said, oh, you can imagine how much pain there is. And the disciple went away, and then he came another time. Well, Guruji, how are you? He said, oh, I feel awful. And he went through this several times. And the disciple finally went away. He says, it doesn't seem like he's really, that's true. And Ramakrishna said, the fellow has found me out. He knows I'm beyond the pain. And one time at Ananda village, one of our temples burned to the ground. And Swami Kriyanandaji was, people thought, oh, he's so upset, and what are we going to do, and we don't have the money. And they found Swamiji just a ways away from where that happened. And I think it was that night. And he was lying down and off by himself. And I believe it was Jyotishji, I'm not sure, but they went close to where Swamiji was to comfort him. And all they heard from Swamiji was, he was just in a blissful state. Joy, joy, joy. And he said later, I had given the temple to God. It wasn't mine. And I asked Divine Mother, have I done something wrong? And all I could feel coming back from her was just a blissful feeling of joy. And these are wonderful stories to meditate on, because we feel that the pain, the suffering, we have to go through them. Oh, I feel so badly. But we can rise above that pain if we can stick with our practices. And then everyone feels that their pain is more than anyone else's, and no one else has them. And I love the story of the Buddha who, a woman came to him and she said, "My son has just died. Can you bring him back to life?" And he said, "Go to the home of anyone whose family has not, in that home, they have never seen death. Bring me the mustard seeds from that home, and I'll see what I can do." And she went from home to home to home. She couldn't find anybody. And she came back. "I didn't find anybody." And he said, "Now you know. Everyone, in one way or another, has seen that side of their life." And as a young man, Siddhartha, he went, remember, he was in his palace, in the palace grounds, and his father never allowed him to see anything that was happening outside of there. And everyone was young or looking young or trying to look young and, healthy, and he had never seen anything but that: beauty, prosperity, health, wealth. And one day he wanted to go outside the palace grounds, and he wanted to see, well, what's out there? And so he snuck out with one of his friends, and he goes there and he sees an old man, and he's never seen old men before because they had hidden everybody from him. So he sees one, he asks his companion, "Well, what happened to him?" And his friend says, "Oh, my lord, he's an old man. This happens to everyone." And he said, "Oh my God, really?" He said, "Yes, my lord." And then he goes a little further and he sees someone who's ill, very ill. And he asked his companion, what happened to him? And he says, "Oh, my lord, that's called illness. It happens to everyone." And he said, "It does?" He said, "Yes." And then he goes out and he sees someone at a crematory ground, a body there, getting ready to be cremated. And he says, "Well, what's that?" He said, "Ah, my lord, he has died." And he said, "Does that happen to everybody?" He says, "Yes, my lord, it happens to everyone." And then he sought the answer of life and death and became free, the Buddha. He sought why. But he didn't go outside of himself. He went inside and he found the answers. And I was thinking, why do we come onto the spiritual path in the first place? We come to grow, we come to learn, we come to get rid of attachments, to get rid of delusions. We come to get strong. When I came to Ananda, the very beginning, I went there for those reasons. I wanted to get rid of bad habits. I wanted to get rid of desires. I wanted to get strong in myself. I wanted to know God. And I would do anything to do that. And then when I went to Ananda, because I wanted to be with those kinds of people, strong people, people who had will, people who were shedding attachments, people who were walking a spiritual path, people who were dharmic, people who wanted to become saints. And that's why I went. And that was nearly 40 years ago. I went there. At the beginning, I was a young girl out of college, and it was discipline. There were tests for sure, but I went through those tests. I remember I went there, and I was. You had to get up at 5 in the morning. I remember one of the first people I met was Keshavaji. That's a longer story that I won't get into, but he was one of the first people I saw there. But I went, and you had to get up early. I had never gotten up early. 5 o'clock was like, forget it. And then you had to go to sadhana, energize. I didn't really like that. And, all the various things that we do twice a day. And then we had seva. Seva. My life was for me. Why do I have to serve somebody else? That was a test. And my seva for the whole time I was there was in the kitchen with the dishes. And I washed dish after dish after dish after dish. And then at a certain point, I didn't want to be positive, energetic, enthusiastic anymore. I thought, this is too much for me. It's too high for me. What was wrong with my life? It was nice. I had a good life. It was comfortable. Why do I need to challenge myself? I don't need these tests. And so I left. Wow. And I left, I stayed away for 3 long, hard years of tests, because that was not where my soul wanted to be. And when I came back, and I thought, no. Master said, if you think this is hard, you go out there. And I had gone out there, and I came back, and I said, no, I'm going to take the hand of my guru. I'm going to do what he asks me to do. I'm going to follow these teachings, and I'm going to strengthen myself. And Master had a devotee who was, he called him his baby, because he just was so weak. And Master in public said to him, oh, baby, you like me calling you baby, don't you? And the man would say, yes, Master, I like it. Because he didn't want to get strong. He didn't want to go through the spiritual life. And even Yoganandaji, he had many tests. When he went to America, he said that he wrote back to some of the disciples there, when he was in India, in America, there. And he said, had it not been for Rajasi, Janakananda, and a few others, he said, I wouldn't even want to go back to America. There were so many tests that he went through. And at one time, they didn't have money, they didn't have food, and they planted tomatoes on the hillside of Mount Washington. They had tomato everything. Tomato soup, tomato stew, tomato broth, tomato sandwiches, tomatoes. Left, right, front, behind, tomatoes. And he was an avatar. But they grew in strength. He wanted those disciples to grow in strength. And Master also, he had a beautiful temple on the bluff at Encinitas, right over the Pacific Ocean, right on the hillside there. And that's where he would write his books. And that the hillside started to erode. And it kept eroding until the temple, the whole temple, slid down into the Pacific Ocean. And Master said, that's the best thing that ever happened to me. He said, I was here writing all, now God wants me to go out. And he went out and he founded 3 more centers right off. because that was God's will for him. And he didn't ever complain. He just did what was the divine will. And for all of us, what can we do? Well, we have to strengthen ourselves. I was just in a long retreat last week, and I would recommend to people, take time by yourself. Take time in silence, and get a harmonium and chant. Listen to the music of Master and Swamiji. Read the holy books. Have time when you know, this is India, and I know people here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but probably here people and other times would wake up and think of God immediately. Isn't it true? People wake up now, phone, Facebook, Twitter. No, isn't it true? We have to get back to ourselves inside. I remember a man who, Swamiji said that outright disaster, misfortune, Master would take away from the disciples. And there was a story of one of the disciples, Norman, who was driving a truck down, you may know the story, down the hillside at Mount Washington, and the brakes went out. And he kept pumping, no brakes. And he called out, "Master, is this what you want?" And immediately the brakes didn't start working, but the car came to a stop. The Guru takes away the things that are misfortune to you, but he allows you to go through the tests that strengthen you, that you need, that take away your karma. Remember once I was with Swamiji and I said to him, it was such a beautiful thing. I said, sometimes I feel alone, like alone from God. And he said such a beautiful thing. He said, Dhyana, when you practice the presence of God, you'll never feel alone. And that time that we have when we meditate more, when we read the scriptures more, when we're practicing the presence of God, then you never feel alone. And I remember also going to him once when I just felt I just couldn't bear another test. And I went to him and he said, I'm so glad that he lifted me up. He didn't say, oh, I'm so sorry. He said, look what it takes to find God. And I just looked at him like, I can't, it's impossible. And then he said, look what I've had to go through. And I went, oh, God, I just can never go through those things. But he said, you can do it. And if you do it, you will become strong. That is the lesson behind tests. Do you want to be free? Or do you want to cling to all those things that keep you bound? And knowing that the Guru takes away what you don't need for your growth, but everything that comes to you is from his hand, and you can become free. I remember one year at Ananda village, 7 of the people I knew, some very close friends, they died. And it frightened me. And I thought, what's this? Why is this happening? And several of them, he saw them passing away in such glory, very beautiful passings. But the one thing that touched me the most was, of those people, I remember Swamiji, he gave their astral ascension ceremony. You know, that's the Ananda funeral ceremony, astral ascension. And, everyone was weeping and, oh no, it's terrible, and this person was so young, and whatever it was. And Swamiji said something, I was so thrilled. He said at the ceremony about, I know of 3 people. I heard Swamiji say this about, he may have said it about others, but 3 Ananda people who passed away. He said, I had the feeling that they were free. That Master freed them. And all we see is, oh, they suffered, oh, they had cancer, oh, look at their body, oh, look at their face. And on the other side, we don't see what's happening. He said, I had the feeling that they were free. How do you know? All we have to do is keep going forward, keep serving, keep meditating, keep doing the best we can, keep holding on to Guruji's hand. And I had this mantra that came to me, that I'm with Guruji. I'm always with him. Nothing can harm me. Nothing can harm me. And just feel you've taken his hand. And if this isn't your path, take it anyway. Say, I'm with him. Nothing and no one can harm me. And you will feel that your life is ever protected, and you can go beyond the pains and sufferings of this world. But it takes attunement with God and Guru. But with that attunement, you'll feel their blessings. And no matter what tests come, you will feel free. God bless you. Let's meditate just a moment.